You know, some of the most meaningful shifts in life never come when we're straining or forcing. They come in the quiet moments. When you loosen your grip, when you stop trying so hard to hold the world together. Think about it. The person who changed the course of your journey didn't appear because you scheduled it. The opportunity that turned everything around didn't arrive because you pushed with all your strength. And those moments of sudden clarity, the ones that made you see life with new eyes, they didn't come while you were grinding. They came when you were open, when you were available, when you allowed life to flow toward you. This is the paradox of what we call quantum manifestation. It's not difficult because it's complex. It's difficult because it's so simple. The mind resists it. Because for so long we've been told a story that worth comes only through struggle, that love must be chased, that abundance must be earned drop by drop. We live in a culture that glorifies the climb, the sacrifice, the endless proving of oneself. And so, when something arrives with ease, the conditioned mind whispers, "This can't be real. If it were this easy, everyone would have it." But maybe that's the point. Maybe reality itself has been trying to show us that the current of life moves through ease, not resistance. That energy flows through the path of least resistance, the way rivers carve their way to the sea without ever straining, the way a tree grows upward toward the light without tightening its branches in effort. The universe was never asking you to fight with it. It was asking you to remember how to flow with it. The truth is, manifestation isn't about chasing after something. It's not about standing at a distance, stretching your arms to pull in what you think is missing. It's about coherence, about bringing your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions into the same frequency. When those pieces of you stop arguing, when they begin to move in harmony, you become like a clear signal on a radio dial. Suddenly, the music is there, not because you forced it, but because you finally tuned in. And yet, here is where many people stumble. They think they want love, but underneath they carry fear of abandonment. They affirm abundance, but inside, they tremble with anxiety about money. They declare trust in the process, but spend their days checking and rechecking if the universe has delivered yet. That's not alignment. That's incoherence. And the quantum field doesn't respond to the words you say. It responds to the energy you are. Have you ever had a moment when life felt effortless, when everything just seemed to fall into place? Maybe you bumped into someone at the exact time you needed to. Maybe you took a wrong turn, and it led you exactly where you were meant to be. Those weren't accidents. Those were moments of coherence. When you stopped fighting, when your energy lined up, and the field reflected it back instantly. You see, what we call manifestation isn't about creating something out of thin air. It's about tuning into what already exists. At the quantum level, every possibility already lives in the field. Your future self, your answered prayer, your healed heart, they are not waiting to be constructed. They are waiting to be remembered. And the only barrier between you and them is the belief that life must be hard, that you must earn your place, that suffering is the price of love. But what if that's the very illusion keeping you from what you seek? What if the only thing standing between you and your breakthrough is your unwillingness to believe? It could really be that simple. Simplicity is not passivity. It's not sitting on the couch wishing for miracles. Simplicity is mastery. It is the decision to quiet the noise, to release the compulsion to control, to let go of the inner chaos that scatters your energy in 100 directions. It is choosing to stand clear, to say, "This is who I am. This is the reality I align with. I will not argue with it anymore." And in that clarity, something extraordinary happens. You stop chasing and start embodying. You stop trying to attract love and you start being love. You stop forcing abundance and you start living as abundance itself. You stop searching for peace and you rest as peace. The universe doesn't respond to effort. It mirrors coherence. And when you embody the frequency of what you desire, reality has no choice but to echo it back. So maybe the invitation today is not to do more, but to soften more, to let your nervous system feel safe enough to stop bracing for impact, to let your heart open enough to remember that it was never separate from what it longed for, to allow your mind to loosen its grip on the old story that says, without struggle, you are not worthy. Because here's the deeper truth: you are not manifesting in order to become someone else. You are manifesting in order to remember who you already are. The field doesn't need you to prove yourself. It doesn't need endless rituals or desperate affirmations. It simply needs your coherence. It needs your willingness to let it be simple. And when you allow it, when you step out of the frantic rhythm of striving and into the quiet rhythm of being, something profound occurs. The boundaries dissolve, the separation fades, and you realize you were never waiting for your future. You were always living inside it. Take a breath with me right now. Inhale gently, exhale fully, in this very moment, without struggle, without control, without force. You are already aligned with what you seek. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. 1. Coherence. The power of alignment. There's a quiet strength that comes when your mind, your heart, and your actions are no longer at war with each other. Most of us know what it feels like to be split inside. To say one thing but feel another. To dream of a future, yet carry fear in our chest. To promise ourselves change, but keep repeating the same old patterns. That inner division isn't just exhausting, it's noisy. It's like tuning a radio but never quite landing on the right station. The static drowns out the music, no matter how close you are to the frequency. But coherence is when the noise finally settles. It's when your thoughts, your emotions, and your choices begin to hum the same note, as if your whole being becomes a single instrument, playing in tune. And when that happens, something remarkable takes place. Life starts to feel less like a struggle and more like a dance. Opportunities don't feel forced. They arrive with an almost uncanny timing. Conversations open doors you didn't even know were there. Your body feels lighter, your mind clearer, your spirit at ease. You realize coherence is the language the universe understands best. Let me put it in simpler terms. Imagine chuair. If half the singers are off key, it doesn't matter how loudly they sing. The sound will still be unpleasant, scattered, hard to follow. But if every voice comes together, each in harmony, the music fills the room with power. That's coherence. It's not about trying harder or being louder. It's about being aligned. The same is true with us. When our inner voices are in conflict, the signal we send out is scattered. But when they unite, even softly, it carries further than we could ever push on our own. And maybe you've already tasted it without naming it. Think back to a moment when life seemed to line up effortlessly for you. Maybe you walked into the right place at the right time, and someone appeared who shifted your path. Maybe an idea landed in your mind so clearly it felt like it had been waiting for you all along. Or maybe there was a day when everything just flowed. You didn't push. You didn't plan every detail. Yet it all worked out better than you could have designed. Those weren't coincidences. That was coherence, showing you what's possible when your energy isn't fractured. Now, the mind often resists this truth. It tells us that power comes from effort, from pushing, from control. But coherence reveals something gentler, that true strength isn't about force. It's about clarity. When your thoughts match your feelings, and your feelings match your actions, you stop wasting energy. You stop taking 5 steps forward and 4 steps back. Every part of you begins to move in the same direction, and the momentum builds naturally. I know this isn't always easy. Most of us carry wounds, doubts, and old patterns that pull us out of coherence. We may want love, but we're still haunted by the memory of rejection. We may dream of abundance, But fear whispers that money will always slip away. We may long for peace, but the nervous system stays trapped in survival mode. And so, our inner world sends mixed signals. I want it, but I don't trust it. I choose it, but I don't believe I deserve it. And the universe, like a faithful mirror, reflects the confusion back to us. The invitation here is not to shame yourself for that fragmentation, but to recognize it, to see when your inner choir is out of tune. Because the moment you notice, you have the power to soften, to breathe, to gently bring yourself back toward alignment. Coherence doesn't demand perfection. It asks for honesty. It asks you to pause and ask, am I thinking, feeling, and acting from the same truth? Or am I divided against myself? You might wonder, how do we begin to cultivate coherence? Often, it starts with stillness, with allowing yourself to rest long enough to hear the noise inside, not to judge it, not to fight it, but to listen, like slowly tuning that radio dial. You adjust until the static fades. You let your mind grow keener, your heart grow calmer, your body relax. And in that calmness, clarity emerges. From clarity, coherence is born. What's beautiful is that coherence doesn't just change your inner state. It changes the way the world responds to you. Because the universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to the energy you broadcast. And when that energy is unified, when your whole being is sending one clear message, reality has no choice but to echo it back. So if you take one thing from this, let it be this: coherence is not something you chase. It's not another achievement on your list. It's what naturally arises when you stop scattering your energy in 100 directions. It's what appears when you let your inner world stop arguing with itself. And when coherence arrives, you don't have to wonder if manifestation works. You'll see it, you'll feel it, and you'll know it. Not because you forced it, but because you finally tuned into the music that was always playing. 2. The role of the nervous system. There's something we often overlook when we talk about manifestation or spiritual growth. We talk about thoughts. We talk about beliefs. We talk about energy. But rarely do we pause to ask, what about the body itself? Because your body isn't just a vessel carrying your mind around. It's the amplifier, the translator, the bridge between your inner world and the reality you experience. Think about this. If your nervous system is locked in survival mode, no amount of affirmations or visualizations will feel safe enough to land. You can tell yourself, I'm abundant, I'm loved, I'm at peace. But if your body is bracing, tense, flooded with stress hormones, it won't believe you. It can't. In survival mode, the body is wired to scan for danger, not possibility. It's too busy protecting you to allow expansion. And this is why so many people feel like they're doing the work but not seeing the shift. It's not that they're failing. It's that their nervous system is carrying an old story, a story of threat, of scarcity, of mistrust. The mind says yes, but the body says no. And that split creates static in the signal. I know what it's like to live in that tension, to wake up each day with a mind full of hopes and a body that feels like it's still holding on to yesterday's fears, to want so deeply to move forward, yet feel chained by a nervous system that doesn't know the war is over. It's a heavy way to live. And for many of us, it has been the only way we've ever known. But here's the gentle truth. Your body isn't your enemy. It isn't sabotaging you. It's protecting you the only way it knows how. Every racing heartbeat, every tight shoulder, every restless night. It's your nervous system trying to keep you alive. The problem is, it learned to guard you in ways that no longer serve who you are becoming. The work, then, is not to force the body into silence, but to teach it safety again, to remind it that it can exhale, that it no longer has to be on constant watch. Because only when the body feels safe can the deeper layers of manifestation open. Only when your nervous system is regulated can you step out of survival and into creation. I sometimes think of it like trying to grow a garden. You can scatter the most beautiful seeds, your intentions, your visions, your affirmations. But if the soil is dry, cracked, and hard from years of drought, nothing will take root. The nervous system is that soil. When it is softened, watered, nourished, suddenly the seeds sprout without effort. Not because the seeds changed, but because the ground was finally ready to hold them. And here's the thing. Regulating the nervous system doesn't always come from grand practices. Sometimes it's as simple as sitting quietly and letting yourself breathe all the way into your belly. Sometimes it's placing a hand on your heart and whispering, "I'm safe now." Sometimes it's taking a slow walk without rushing anywhere. Letting your body remember what it feels like to move without urgency. When you do this, you begin to feel the shift. The heart rate steadies, the breath deepens, the shoulders soften, and in that softening, the body starts to trust. And when the body trusts, it opens the door to coherence. Suddenly, your mind's desires and your spirit's intentions have a place to land. They no longer bounce against a wall of tension. They sink in, take root, and radiate outward. I've seen people try to manifest from a place of desperation, clinging, pleading, pushing, and I've seen how the universe mirrors that back with delay, with resistance, with scattered results. But I've also seen the quiet miracles that happen when someone allows their nervous system to calm, when they create even the smallest pocket of stillness and safety. In that state, the field responds almost instantly, because the body is no longer screaming for survival. It's whispering alignment. So if you've been trying and trying, if you've wondered why nothing seems to stick, perhaps it's not your intention that needs fixing. Perhaps it's your nervous system that's asking for tenderness, to be soothed, not ignored, to be listened to, not overridden. And maybe the most spiritual thing you can do today isn't another visualization or ritual. Maybe it's giving your body the gift of rest, a long walk in nature, a slow exhale, a night of true sleep, a moment of stillness where you tell your body, "You are safe. You can trust me now." Because when your body finally believes it's safe, your whole being becomes coherent. The static dissolves, and the frequency you've been trying so hard to hold suddenly radiates without effort. And from that place, manifestation isn't forced. It's inevitable. 3. Simplicity is not passivity. There's a quiet misconception that often sneaks in when we talk about surrender, alignment, or allowing life to flow. Many people hear the word simplicity and translate it into passivity, as if choosing the path of ease means sitting back, doing nothing, and waiting for the world to fix itself. But that's not simplicity. That's resignation. And those two couldn't be further apart. True simplicity is not the absence of movement, but the refinement of movement. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing what matters. With clarity and intention, it's the difference between flailing in deep water and learning to float. One exhausts you, the other sustains you. Think of it like this. A sculptor begins with a heavy block of marble. To the untrained eye, it looks like there's nothing there but a shapeless stone. But the sculptor knows the figure already exists within the block. Their task is not to add more stone. It's to remove what doesn't belong. Stroke by stroke, they cut away the excess, until what remains is simple, elegant, essential. That is what simplicity truly is. Not absence, but precision. The same is true for us. So much of our struggle comes from layers we've piled on. Layers of rituals we don't believe in. Obligations that don't serve us. Habits born out of fear rather than love. We create complication because we think complication makes it more real, more worthy. But in truth, complication scatters the signal. It's noise disguised as discipline. And the universe doesn't respond to noise. It responds to clarity. Simplicity asks you to choose fewer things, but to choose them wholeheartedly, to say yes with your full self, instead of saying yes to everything halfway. That isn't laziness. That's integrity. That's power. When your choices are simple, they become strong. I remember a season in my own life when I confused effort with progress. I filled my days with practices, routines, endless rituals, thinking the more I did, the faster life would shift. But underneath all that effort was fear. Fear that if I didn't keep moving, nothing would change. And yet, despite all that doing, I felt stuck. It wasn't until I stopped, until I allowed myself to strip away the unnecessary, that I began to see movement again. The breakthrough didn't come from doing more. It came from finally doing less, but with more presence. Simplicity doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to focus. It means you stop scattering your attention on 100 different practices and instead return to the one thing that matters most: your alignment, your frequency, your presence. And from that place, the smallest action becomes powerful. Imagine holding a magnifying glass in the sun. If you keep moving it around, the light spreads thin and nothing happens. But when you hold it steady, when you focus the beam, the energy becomes concentrated enough to start a fire. That's simplicity. Not scattered energy, but focused energy. And that's why it creates results that effort alone never could. Now, let's be clear. Simplicity is not avoidance. It doesn't mean ignoring your responsibilities or denying the challenges of life. Life will always bring moments that require action, courage, and resilience. But simplicity reminds you to act from clarity, not compulsion, from alignment, not fear. You're not throwing your hands up and waiting for miracles. You're clearing away the clutter so that miracles can find their way in. And here's the deeper invitation. Simplicity is an act of trust. To simplify is to believe that you don't need to micromanage every variable, that the universe is already intelligent enough to meet you halfway. It is saying, I will do my part with integrity, and then I will allow the larger forces to do theirs. That trust is not weakness. It is strength, because it takes courage to release control. Look around in nature, and you'll see this truth. The river doesn't carve its way by straining. It follows the simplest path, the path of least resistance. And yet, over time, it shapes valleys, moves mountains, nourishes life. That's not passivity. That's power through alignment. Simplicity is the river's way. So, if you've been tangled in the belief that letting go means giving up, I invite you to shift your view. Letting go is not surrendering to nothingness. It's surrendering to the deeper intelligence of life. Simplicity is not about stopping your movement. It's about letting your movement come from the right place. And when it does, you'll notice something. Life begins to respond differently. Opportunities feel less like battles you have to win, and more like doors quietly opening. Relationships feel less like negotiations and more like harmonies. Even your inner world feels less like a battlefield and more like a sanctuary. Because when your energy is simple, it's coherent. And when it's coherent, it's unstoppable. So, remember this. Simplicity is not passivity. It is the art of refinement, the courage to release the unnecessary, and the trust to believe that what remains is enough. And when you choose simplicity, you discover a truth that struggle could never reveal: that life was never meant to be complicated. It was always meant to be clear. 4. Inner resistance. There's a strange pattern I've noticed, both in myself and in nearly everyone I've walked alongside. In this life, we are deeply suspicious of anything that feels too easy. Somewhere along the way, we absorb the belief that only what hurts is worthy, that only what costs us blood, sweat, and tears has real value. It's as if we've been programmed to see struggle as proof of love, sacrifice as the ticket to abundance, and exhaustion as the stamp of legitimacy. Think about it. How often have you heard phrases like, "Nothing worth having comes easy," or "No pain, no gain"? These words might have been passed down by well-meaning parents, teachers, or mentors who themselves were shaped by hardship. But while these sayings were meant to toughen us, they also planted a seed of distrust in our hearts. Distrust toward ease, distrust toward flow, distrust toward the idea that something beautiful could arrive without us fighting for it. And so, when ease actually shows up, we push it away. We second-guess it. We say, "This must be too good to be true. If it came this simply, it can't last. It can't be real." That's what inner resistance looks like. Not an external obstacle, but an internal wall we ourselves build and maintain. I remember a season in my life when opportunities began to appear almost effortlessly. People came into my path at the right time. Doors opened. Things lined up. But instead of celebrating, I felt uneasy. I kept thinking, it shouldn't be this easy. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I haven't worked hard enough to deserve this. I sabotaged myself. Not because life was against me, but because I couldn't accept that life could also be gentle. This is the cost of our conditioning. We've been taught that difficulty equals depth, that suffering is the only way to prove we're serious. And while resilience is noble, this narrative is incomplete. The truth is, resistance is not always a sign of growth. Sometimes, it's simply the echo of an old belief that no longer serves us. Here's the paradox. The very resistance we cling to, the doubt that whispers easy means shallow, is often the only thing standing between us and the reality we long for. The struggle is not with the universe. It's with the story we've inherited. But what if we began to see ease differently? What if, instead of treating it as the enemy, we saw it as a doorway? What if ease wasn't here to rob us of meaning, but to show us a different kind of power, the power of alignment, of trust, of coherence? Consider water. When you watch a river flow, you don't call it lazy for choosing the path of least resistance. You call it graceful. And yet, over time, that very ease has carved canyons, moved boulders, nourished forests. Its power is not in straining, but in steady, aligned movement. The same is true for us. When we allow ourselves to move with the current of life, instead of against it, we discover a strength that doesn't burn us out. It sustains us. Of course, letting go of inner resistance takes courage, because ease requires trust, and trust means releasing control. For many of us, control has been our survival strategy. We micromanage, overthink, and overwork because it gives us the illusion of safety. But safety born from control is fragile. It collapses the moment life does something unexpected. True safety comes from alignment, from knowing that the universe does not need your struggle in order to support you. So, how do we begin to soften this resistance? Often, it begins with awareness. Simply noticing the moment your mind whispers, "This can't be real," or "This is too easy." Instead of fighting that thought, pause it, breathe, ask yourself, where did I learn that suffering is the only path? Whose voice am I still carrying inside me? When you trace the belief back to its root, you begin to see it for what it is. Not truth, but conditioning. And once you see it, you can choose differently. You can remind yourself, ease is not weakness. Ease is alignment. Ease is a gift. The wall you've been pressing against all these years isn't made of stone. It's made of old words, old fears, old stories. And walls like that don't need to be smashed through. They dissolve the moment you stop feeding them. Ease was never your enemy. It was always the doorway, waiting for you to trust it. And when you do, something profound happens. The universe no longer has to fight through your resistance to deliver what was already yours. It can flow freely, gracefully, just like the river carving its way to the sea. So, if you feel yourself doubting when life offers you something beautiful, take a breath and ask, what if it really can be this simple? Because more often than not, that single question is enough to open the door. 5. Presence. The power of being here. There comes a moment in life when you realize that the past cannot be undone, and the future cannot be guaranteed. You can plan, you can worry, you can replay every memory in your head, but none of that gives you the peace you're longing for. Peace only arrives when you return to the one place you've been avoiding all along here. This moment, this breath, this heartbeat. Presence is not a mystical state reserved for monks or sages. It's something available to every single one of us, right now. And yet, it often feels like the hardest thing to touch, because presence requires us to release the stories that keep us busy, the regrets about what was, the anxieties about what might be, the endless commentary of the mind that insists it knows better. Presence is what remains when the noise fades. I used to think that if I wasn't analyzing my past or planning for my future, I was being irresponsible. I believed that worrying somehow kept me prepared. But all worry ever gave me was exhaustion. It never protected me. It never changed the outcome. What truly changed my life were the rare moments when I let myself stop, when I allowed silence to take the place of thought, when I simply breathed and felt my body sitting right where it was. In those moments, I tasted something I had been chasing my whole life: freedom. Presence dissolves the illusion of separation. In the present moment, the ego, the part of us that is always measuring, comparing, grasping, loses its grip. And in its absence, something far greater takes over: the awareness that you are not separate from life. You are life. You are the consciousness through which this very moment is being experienced. And from that awareness, the things you've been chasing often appear on their own, not because you force them, but because you stop standing in their way. Think of presence like a clear window. When the glass is smudged with memories of the past and fears of the future, the light struggles to shine through. But when you wipe it clean, suddenly the light pours in, effortlessly. You don't have to beg for it. You don't have to earn it. It was always there. Presence is the act of cleaning the window, so reality can show itself to you. Some of you might ask, but how does presence connect with manifestation? The answer is simple. Presence creates coherence. When you're fully here, your thoughts aren't running one way, while your emotions drag you another. You're not pulled between yesterday's pain and tomorrow's fear. All of you is gathered, united, in this moment, and that unity, the absence of internal conflict, is what allows your desires to crystallize. Manifestation isn't about projecting yourself endlessly into the future. It's about embodying the reality you long for now. When you are present, you stop pleading for a different life and begin living as if the life you desire is already here. And the universe, faithful mirror that it is, reflects that state of being back to you. I'll tell you something I've learned the hard way. Presence often reveals what busyness was hiding. When you slow down enough to be here, you may notice grief you hadn't processed, fear you've been suppressing, or loneliness you've been avoiding. And that's okay. In fact, that's part of the gift. Presence doesn't just show you peace. It shows you yourself. It offers you the chance to sit with what's real, to feel it fully, and to let it pass through, rather than carry it like a burden. This is why presence is both healing and empowering. It heals because it allows your nervous system to rest, your body to soften, your heart to open, and it empowers because when you are fully here, you are no longer split between what was and what might be. All your energy, all your focus, all your being is in one place. And in that place, you are infinitely powerful. Have you ever noticed how children embody presence so naturally? Watch a child playing. They're not thinking about what they did yesterday or what will happen tomorrow. They are immersed, completely alive, in that one act, that one laugh, that one discovery. And in their presence, life responds. Joy spills out of them, and the world seems to meet them with delight. As adults, we forget this. We think presence is something we need to achieve, when in truth, it's something we simply return to. So, perhaps the invitation today is not to complicate your spiritual practice with more steps, but to simplify it into one: be here. Be here when you're washing the dishes. Be here when you're walking down the street. Be here when you're talking with someone you love. Be here even when you're in pain, because even in discomfort, presence carries grace. And as you practice being here, you may begin to notice something subtle but profound. The things you used to chase so desperately, peace, love, abundance, start showing up in the ordinary rhythm of your days. They arrive not as rewards for effort, but as natural companions of awareness, because in presence, you stop running from life and start letting life find you. So take a moment, even now, as you listen, feel your breath moving in and out. Notice the weight of your body resting wherever you are. Allow the mind to settle, even for just a heartbeat. This is presence. This is where freedom begins. And perhaps, just perhaps, this is where what you've been searching for will finally meet you. 6. The ultimate simplicity. There's a moment in life, often after years of chasing, when you finally realize that what you've been running after has never been missing. It has been here, quietly waiting for you to notice. And in that realization, something profound begins to shift. You stop seeking, and you start remembering. Manifestation is often spoken of as if it's about getting something you don't have. More money, more love, more peace, more opportunity. But the deepest truth is far simpler. It's not about gaining what's absent. It's about becoming what has always been present within you. The abundance, the love, the peace. They aren't distant prizes. They are states of being, woven into your essence from the very beginning. This is why I call it the ultimate simplicity, because manifestation isn't about constructing a new reality brick by brick. It's about aligning with the truth of who you already are. And once you remember that truth, the outer world has no choice but to catch up. I know how strange that can sound. For much of my life, I believed in the opposite. I thought I had to strive, to prove, to hustle endlessly in order to deserve even a taste of fulfillment. And the harder I tried, the further it seemed to slip away. It wasn't until life brought me to my knees, until I had exhausted every plan, every strategy, that I discovered a different way. In the stillness of surrender, I realized what I had been searching for was not outside me. It was me. Think of it this way: a seed never has to chase the tree. It will become. It holds the blueprint within. Given the right conditions, light, soil, water, it simply unfolds. It doesn't force itself into growth, and it doesn't doubt whether it's worthy of becoming a tree. It remembers its nature, and it becomes it. That's manifestation. Not striving to build a future self, but allowing the self that already exists within you to emerge. The complication arises because the mind wants evidence. It wants to measure, to calculate, to prove that something is happening. But the deeper intelligence of life doesn't work through proof. It works through presence, through trust, through alignment. And when you allow yourself to rest in that, things begin to flow in ways your logic could never have designed. I've seen it happen again and again, in my own life and in the lives of others. The moment someone stops chasing and starts embodying, doors open. The moment they stop pleading for love and begin to live as love, Relationships transform. The moment they stop obsessing over money and start embodying abundance in how they think and act, opportunities appear. It looks miraculous. But really, it's the most natural thing in the world. Simplicity doesn't mean passivity. It means living as if the truth is already here. If you desire peace, speak gently, move slowly, breathe deeply, be peace. If you desire love, open your heart, offer kindness, listen with compassion, be love. If you desire abundance, trust the flow, share what you have, live with gratitude, be abundance. This isn't pretending, it's remembering. It's recognizing that the only reason you feel lack is because you've been arguing with what is already true. And here's the quiet miracle. When you live as if, the universe doesn't punish you for arrogance. It mirrors your frequency. It aligns your outer experience with your inner state, because in the quantum field, coherence is law. What you embody, you invite. What you resist, you delay. Now, I won't pretend this is always easy. Simplicity takes courage. It means letting go of the comfort of struggle. It means trusting that you don't need to control every outcome, that life is already intelligent enough to meet you where you are. And that level of trust can feel terrifying, especially for those of us who have lived through hardship. But once you taste it, even in small doses, you realize it's the only way that truly works. The ultimate simplicity is not about changing yourself, it's about remembering yourself. It's about living today as the version of you who already has what you desire. Not someday, not if or when, but now, because now is the only place life ever happens. So pause for a moment. Feel your breath. Notice the life moving in and out of you without effort. Notice how, in this exact second, you are not missing anything. You are complete. You are here. And from this presence, this completeness, life will reflect back exactly who you choose to be. That is the essence of manifestation. Not reaching, not grasping, not running, simply remembering. And the more you remember, the more effortless life becomes. Because you finally stop searching for the door and realize you were always standing inside the room. 7. Incoherence. The state of misalignment. There is a kind of quiet suffering many of us live with every day. Though we rarely put a name to it, it's the feeling of being pulled in opposite directions inside yourself. Your mind saying one thing, your heart whispering another, and your actions walking an entirely different path. On the surface, it looks like living, but inside, it feels like splitting. And this inner split has a vibration. It sends out a signal. The universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. It doesn't take its cues from the words you repeat or the affirmations you speak into the mirror. It listens to the deeper broadcast, the one carried by your energy, your feelings, your choices. And when that broadcast is incoherent, when it's full of contradiction, the reflection life gives you is equally scattered. I remember a time in my own life when I declared, I want peace. I said it out loud. I wrote it in journals. I told anyone who asked that peace was my goal. But the truth was, inside, I was feeding on worry. My thoughts raced ahead into the future, spinning stories of what might go wrong. My body carried the tension of years of stress. And even though my lips spoke peace, my life kept mirroring back anxiety and unrest. It wasn't because the universe was ignoring me. It was because I was incoherent. Think of it like trying to tune an old radio. You might know which station you want. You might even say its name. But if your hand keeps the dial just slightly off, what comes through isn't the song. It's static. The static isn't proof the station doesn't exist. It's proof you're not aligned with it. The same is true with manifestation. When you think one thing, feel another, and do something else, the signal you send out becomes noise. and noise never carries clearly. This is why so many people feel stuck, even though they're trying so hard. They affirm abundance, but carry fear about money in their chest. They dream of love, but hold resentment close to their heart. They pray for healing, but continue to speak words of doubt and defeat. It's not hypocrisy. It's human, but it's also incoherence. And incoherence cancels out the very things we long for. The tragedy is that we often blame ourselves in the wrong way. We think, maybe I didn't try hard enough. Maybe I didn't practice long enough. Maybe I'm not worthy. But the issue isn't worthiness. It's alignment. When your inner world is divided, the outer world reflects that division. And so, the work is not to try harder, but to become whole. Coherence is wholeness. Incoherence is fragmentation. And you can feel the difference. When you are coherent, there's a quiet ease. Even if life isn't perfect, you move with clarity. You speak with conviction. You act without second guessing. But when you are incoherent, there's tension in everything. Your choices feel heavy. Your words ring hollow. Your steps feel uncertain. Life feels like a tug of war inside your own chest. I want you to know something: incoherence is not a failure. It's a signal. It's your being telling you, something in me is not aligned. Something in me is asking to be brought back into harmony. And when you listen to that signal, when you stop ignoring the static, you begin the journey back to coherence. How do you do this? Not by forcing yourself to think differently overnight. Not by pretending feelings aren't there. But by noticing where the split is. Maybe your mind wants prosperity, but your heart is still carrying the belief that money corrupts. Maybe your mouth speaks love, but your body still remembers the sting of betrayal. Maybe your actions chase success, but your spirit longs for rest. When you notice the split, you can bring compassion to it. You can begin to soften the edges, to reconcile the parts of yourself that have been at war. The universe is not punishing you for incoherence. It's reflecting it so you can see it. That reflection isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's life showing you exactly where your energy is divided, so you can choose differently. And here's the hopeful truth: the moment you begin to bring yourself into alignment, even a little, the static clears, the signal sharpens, and life responds. Not months later, not in some distant future, but immediately, because the universe doesn't run on time, it runs on frequency. The moment your frequency becomes clear, reality shifts. So, if you've been frustrated, if you've felt like nothing is working despite all your effort, pause. Instead of blaming yourself, ask, am I coherent right now? Are my thoughts, feelings, and actions carrying the same message? And if the answer is no, don't shame yourself. Just begin to gently gather yourself back. Bring your heart into alignment with your words. Bring your actions into alignment with your intentions. Let all parts of you hum the same note. Because when you do, the noise quiets, the confusion fades, and suddenly, the universe reflects back. Not your contradictions, but your clarity. That's the power of coherence. And that's the lesson of incoherence. Not that you're failing, but that you're being invited home to yourself. Entanglement. The quantum connection. There's a mystery at the heart of life that science has only begun to describe, but the soul has always known. Quantum physics calls it entanglement. The strange fact that two particles, once connected, remain linked no matter how far apart they travel. Touch one, and the other responds instantly, even across the vastness of space. To the rational mind, this feels impossible. And yet, it is one of the most consistent truths ever observed. But here's what matters for us. This isn't just about particles in a laboratory. It's about you and your desires. The moment a true desire arises within you, not a passing whim, not a shallow craving, but a genuine pull of the heart, it becomes entangled with you in the field of life. That desire is not separate from you. It is not dangling somewhere far off, waiting to be caught. It is already connected, already bound to you, already alive in the quantum field. This is why you don't need to chase your desires or drag them toward you with force. You don't need to beg or bargain with the universe, because at the deepest level, you and what you long for are already two ends of the same thread. The work is not pulling, it's tuning. It's aligning your frequency with what is already yours. I can remember a time when I used to beg for things, plead for love, pray for security, chase after opportunities. And the harder I tried to grip them, the more they slipped through my fingers. It wasn't because I was unworthy. It was because I was acting as if those things were separate from me. I treated my desires like distant stars, far beyond reach. But the truth is, they were already in my field, already tied to me by invisible strands of connection. All I needed to do was stop pushing against them and allow myself to receive. Think of it like being tuned to the wrong radio station. The music you want to hear is already broadcasting. The signal is alive, vibrant, flowing, but until you adjust the dial, all you'll hear is static. Manifestation is that simple. You're not creating the music. You're tuning in. You're not inventing the reality. You're aligning with it. And here's the beautiful part. The evidence of this entanglement has probably already shown up in your life. Haven't there been moments when you thought of someone and then they called, or times when you had a hunch to take a different road and it led to an unexpected blessing? Those weren't coincidences. Those were glimpses of entanglement. Moments when you were momentarily tuned to the frequency of what was already connected to you. But most of us, conditioned by old beliefs, dismiss those moments. We say, that was just luck. That was just chance. And by doing so, we tune ourselves away again. We forget that life has always been whispering to us through these subtle connections. The real challenge isn't whether our desires are connected. They already are. The challenge is whether we allow ourselves to believe it. Because belief is the bridge, doubt creates static. But trust clears the line. The more you trust that your desire is already entangled with you, the more naturally you align with it. I want you to imagine for a moment that what you seek is not separate from you, but already here, woven into your being. That the love you desire is not out there, waiting to be found, but already resonating in the field around you. That the abundance you pray for is not hidden in some distant future, but humming in the frequency of your present self. Can you feel how different that is? How it softens the grasping, the desperation, how it makes space for peace. Entanglement teaches us that life is not a chase. It's a remembering. It's a tuning. It's a quiet shift from how do I get there to how do I allow myself to align with what is already mine. That alignment doesn't come from more effort. It comes from coherence, from gathering your mind, your heart, and your body into the same frequency, so the next time you feel yourself reaching, straining, pushing, pause, breathe, remind yourself, what I seek is already connected to me. My task is not to drag it here, but to match its vibration. And when you do, when you rest in that trust, you may find that what you were chasing all along comes quietly to meet you. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped treating it as something separate. Entanglement is the universe's way of saying, you and your desires are already one. The thread has been tied from the moment your heart whispered its longing. And the more you align with that truth, the more effortlessly life reveals what was never missing. 9. The principle of natural flow. There is a rhythm to life that is older than our striving. You can see it if you watch a river. The river doesn't push the water forward. It doesn't strain or force. It simply flows, pulled by gravity, guided by the shape of the earth. And yet, no matter how many bends or obstacles appear along its path, the river always finds its way to the sea. In the same way, a tree doesn't wake each morning and tense itself, saying, "Today, I must grow taller. It simply opens itself to the sun, drinks from the soil, and allows life to do what life knows how to do. Growth is its nature, flow is its language. And yet, we humans, so clever with our minds, often make things harder than they need to be. We convince ourselves that the path worth taking must be the hardest one, that to earn something, we must suffer for it, that success only comes through struggle, and that joy is a prize, handed out after a war of effort. I know this because I lived that way for years. I thought the only way to feel worthy was to push harder than anyone else. I carried my dreams like heavy stones, dragging them up impossible hills, believing that one day, at the top, I would finally be free. But what I found instead was exhaustion. I was alive, but I wasn't flowing. I was surviving, not living. The turning point came the day I began to notice how life itself was already teaching me something different. I would see how water moved around rocks, how the wind curved through the trees, how birds seemed to ride the currents rather than fight them. It dawned on me, maybe life was never meant to be wrestled into shape. Maybe life was meant to be allowed. The principle of natural flow is not about laziness or avoidance. It's not about sitting idle, waiting for miracles to fall from the sky. Flow still moves. Flow still acts. But it moves with ease, with alignment, with a sense of being carried rather than dragged. When you are in flow, your actions feel lighter. Your choices feel clearer. The next step doesn't have to be forced. It reveals itself. As naturally as the river bends, think of the times when everything seemed to align for you, when you met the right person at just the right moment, when an opportunity appeared without you hunting for it, when the effort you put in seemed to multiply instead of deplete you. That was flow. That was life saying, "This is your path. Walk with me, not against me." The irony is that the harder we push, the more we block the very thing we're reaching for. It's like standing in a stream and trying to force the water upstream with our hands. We splash, we struggle, but all we really do is tire ourselves out. The stream keeps moving forward anyway. And if we simply relaxed, if we trusted the current, it would carry us further in 5 minutes than we could drag ourselves in 5 years. Flow requires trust. It asks you to loosen your grip on the illusion of control. It asks you to listen more than you demand, to notice more than you insist. It asks you to believe that life knows where it's going, even when you don't. That's a hard lesson for the mind, which craves maps and guarantees. But if you think back, haven't your best moments often come when you stopped overthinking and simply allowed yourself to be carried? I remember once standing at a crossroads in my life, torn between two paths. One looked impressive, but every step felt heavy. The other seemed almost too simple, too quiet. Yet when I paid attention, I noticed that my heart felt lighter on the quiet path. That was the flow. That was the river calling. And though it didn't look like much at first, it became the path that brought me peace. The principle of natural flow doesn't mean life will never challenge you. Even rivers meet rocks. But notice what they do. They don't stop. They don't fight. They curve. They soften. They go around. In time, they even carve the rock itself. Flow is not weak. Flow is power that refuses to waste itself in resistance. So the invitation is this: stop making things harder than they need to be. Stop believing the lie that struggle is the only proof of worth. Instead, look for where the energy already wants to move in your life. Where do you feel lightness instead of heaviness? Where does your spirit breathe easier? Where do doors open without you banging on them? Those are signs of the current. Those are invitations into flow. When you walk with the river, you still move forward. You still grow, but you do so in harmony, not in battle. And in that harmony, life doesn't just feel easier, it feels more alive. The river is already flowing. The tree is already growing. And so are you. Trust that. Trust the quiet power of the natural flow and let it carry you home. 10. Awareness of future memory. We often speak of the future as though it were a distant land, a place we must someday travel to if we work hard enough or wait long enough. But what if the future isn't out there at all? What if the future is more like a memory, a part of us that already exists, waiting for us to recall it? This may sound unusual at first, but think of how memory works. You don't create the past when you remember it. You simply revisit it. The events already happened, and your mind retrieves them. In a similar way, what you call the future may already be woven into the fabric of your being. When a desire arises within you, a dream, a vision, a kayat pool, it isn't random. It is a signal from a version of yourself that already exists in another thread of time. That longing is not the beginning of something, but the echo of something that already is. I remember sitting once in a very difficult season of life, convinced that my best days were behind me. In the silence of one particularly heavy night, a thought broke through. What if the life I long for is not something I have to invent from nothing? What if it's already real, and all I need to do is remember it? That thought changed everything. It took the weight off my shoulders. Suddenly, instead of climbing an impossible mountain, I felt like I was being handed a map back to myself. When you view the future as future memory, desire takes on a new meaning. It's no longer a cruel reminder of what you don't have. It becomes a breadcrumb, a clue, pointing you back to the version of you that is already living in that reality. Your job isn't to chase or force it into existence. Your job is to tune into it, to recall it, the way you would recall a dream that is just at the edge of your awareness. Think of it this way: if you close your eyes and try to remember a childhood home, the image may not come all at once. At first, it's blurry. Then, with patience, detalhes emergem. The color of the walls, the smell of the kitchen, the sound of footsteps in the hallway. You don't create the house in that moment. You remember it into clarity. The same is true of your future self. The details may not be sharp yet, but the more you lean into the feeling, the clearer it becomes. This doesn't mean you abandon action. Memory requires participation. If you truly want to remember something, you create space for it. You sit quietly. You bring your attention to it. You allow it to surface. With your future, this looks like aligning your daily choices with the person you sense yourself becoming. If the future memory you are recalling is one of health, then today, you choose foods and habits that honor that memory. If it is one of love, then today, you soften your words and open your heart. You live as though you already remember who you are becoming. And here's the paradox. The more you treat your desire as memory, the less desperate you feel. You stop clinging. You stop begging the universe to deliver something that feels impossibly far away. Instead, you breathe into the calm assurance that somewhere, in the great expanse of possibility, you already are the person you long to be. You are not waiting for it to arrive. You are remembering it into being. I have found that this shift changes how you carry yourself. It gives you patience. It gives you peace. It allows you to walk with dignity even in seasons of lack, because you know the lack is not permanent. It's simply a gap in your remembering. You can feel poor today, but if you remember the richness of your future, you can walk with generosity. You can feel lonely today, but if you remember the wholeness of your future, you can still extend kindness. In this way, memory becomes more powerful than circumstance. Perhaps the most healing part of this idea is that it removes the burden of creating a future. How often do we exhaust ourselves trying to design the perfect life, convinced that one wrong move will ruin it all? But if the future is memory, then the perfection already exists. Our task is gentler to quiet the noise, to listen, to let the memory surface. Just as the past cannot be erased, the future you long for cannot be destroyed. It lives in you. So, The next time you feel a deep desire rise up within you, don't treat it as a demand to run faster. Treat it as a whisper of remembrance. Pause, breathe, ask yourself, what part of me is already living this? What would it feel like to recall that version of myself right now? Then let that feeling guide your steps. You are not reaching into emptiness when you reach toward the future. You are reaching into memory. And one day, perhaps sooner than you think, you will wake up and realize you're not reaching anymore. You're living in the very thing you once remembered. 11. The value of simplicity. There comes a time in life when we begin to see that complexity is often nothing more than the shadow of our own doubt. The more we question ourselves, the more tangled our paths become. We add layer upon layer. Strategies, plans, conditions, hoping that if we think hard enough, calculate carefully enough, we might finally be safe, finally be certain. Yet all that complexity rarely brings peace. It often does the opposite. Simplicity, by contrast, is not naivety. It is not ignorance. It is the deepest form of trust. To live simply is to trust that what is true does not need to be forced. To trust that the desires in your heart are not accidents, but messages. To trust that you do not have to bend the universe to your will, but that the universe is already aligned to meet you when your signal is clear. I remember a season in my life when I was chasing too many things at once. My heart wanted healing, but my mind wanted control. I tried complicated methods, endless checklists, spiritual rituals, layered one on top of another, as if adding more steps would guarantee the outcome. But the more I added, the more disconnected I felt. The truth I eventually came to is this: every layer of complexity was a layer of doubt. I was building scaffolding around my life because I didn't believe the foundation could hold. When I began to strip things away, when I stopped asking, "Am I doing enough?" and instead asked, "What feels true right now?" everything softened. Life became lighter. My desires stopped feeling like battles to be won, and instead became invitations to be received. That is the gift of simplicity. It takes away the strain. It allows the signal of your being to shine without interference. Think of it like tuning an old radio. If the dial is even slightly off, you hear static. The message is still there, but the noise makes it hard to receive. Complexity is that static. Doubt is that static. You twist and turn, adding more layers of thought, but all you really need is a gentle adjustment, a return to the simplest, clearest signal. Once you find it, the noise falls away. The voice comes through. You didn't create the voice. You only tuned yourself to hear it. Simplicity looks different for each of us, but it always carries the same essence. Uncluttered faith. It is the quiet choice to let go of unnecessary resistance, to say, "I don't need to fight my way into alignment. I only need to remember that I already belong." When you live from that place, life begins to mirror you differently. The universe does not have to wrestle against your doubts, your complicated demands, your scattered signals. It only has one task: to reflect back what is already true within you. And here's the beautiful part. Simplicity makes you more resilient, because when life is stripped to its essence, you see that there are fewer things that can truly be shaken. Complication makes you fragile. If one piece of the puzzle falls out of place, the whole structure feels at risk. But simplicity anchors you. It roots you in what cannot be taken away: presence, trust, and clarity of heart. Let me put it plainly. You don't need to prove yourself to life. You don't need to perform 100 rituals, repeat 1,000 affirmations, or construct a perfect plan before you are allowed to receive what you long for. All you need is the simple courage to believe that what you carry inside is enough, that your quiet yes to life is stronger than all the noise of what-ifs. Simplicity, in this way, is not about doing less for the sake of less. It's about doing what matters, with a whole heart. It's about choosing one clear signal over 10 scattered ones. It's about trusting that love, gratitude, and presence, those simple words, are the most powerful forces you could ever align with. If you've ever sat by a calm river at dusk, you know the feeling of simplicity. The world slows down, the noise fades. There is nothing to prove, nothing to fix, nothing to complicate, just the quiet truth of being alive. That is the frequency the universe responds to most effortlessly. Not the frantic vibration of doubt, but the clear, steady pulse of trust. So perhaps the invitation today is not to add more steps, but to take a few away, to notice where your life has become cluttered with unnecessary complications, to ask gently, am I complicating this because I don't trust the simplicity of it? If the answer is yes, then maybe it's time to let go, to return to the childlike faith that the heart already knows how to signal what is true. Simplicity does not mean your life will always be easy, but it does mean that your path will feel clearer. It means that even in hardship, you will carry the strength of knowing you don't need to control every outcome. You only need to show up, aligned and open, with a clear signal of who you are and what you're choosing. In that simplicity, you find freedom, and in that freedom, you find the universe leaning toward you, not as an adversary to conquer, but as a mirror reflecting your clearest self back to you. The quiet secret of manifestation. When we finally arrive at the end of this path, it becomes clear that the secret of quantum manifestation is not in pushing harder, reaching further, or piling on more effort. It lives in something much quieter, much more subtle refinement, the ability to sift through all the noise of doubt, fear, and complexity until what remains is the clear, steady rhythm of alignment. Alignment is not something you achieve through strain. It is something you remember. The way you remember a song you loved long ago. It is already written into your being. The desires you hold are not random wishes floating through the air. They are reminders of who you already are in a different expression of time. Your work is not to build them brick by brick, but to soften enough to recall the version of you who is already living them. This is why manifestation feels so effortless when it works. It is not about creating something new, but about allowing yourself to tune in to what is already true. Effort can be useful, but only to a point. Past that point, effort turns into resistance. It becomes a fight against your own belonging. The real invitation is surrender. Not the kind of surrender that makes you powerless, but the kind that makes you spacious. Surrender is the art of unclenching your hands so that life can place something in them. It is the courage to stop wrestling with the truth that you are already enough, that the love, the abundance, the peace you seek are not prizes waiting to be earned. They are mirrors waiting to be recognized. You don't need to become someone else in order to be worthy. You don't need to fix every flaw, heal every scar, or prove your strength before life will meet you with kindness. You only need to stop arguing with reality, to stop insisting that you are separate from what you long for. The truth is softer than that. The truth is that you and what you seek are already one. If you let it, this message can echo in you like a gentle affirmation. I allow things to be easy. For many of us, those words feel almost impossible at first. We were taught that ease is laziness, that simplicity is weakness, that nothing worth having comes without a fight. But what if that was never true? What if the deepest treasures of life, love, peace, belonging, have always come to you in moments of ease, not struggle? Think of the times you laughed with someone you loved, or felt sunlight on your skin after a long winter. Those weren't earned through striving. They were received by allowing. Ease does not mean life will never challenge you. It means you stop making life harder than it has to be. It means you learn to trust the natural flow of energy, instead of damming it with fear or scattering it with doubt. And when you do, you'll notice something extraordinary. The universe begins to respond instantly, not with fireworks or dramatic displays, but with precision, small, unmistakable reflections that show you, yes, you are aligned. Yes, you are heard. Yes, this is real. It could be a phone call, at the exact moment you needed reassurance, a door opening where you thought there was only a wall, a quiet shift inside yourself that suddenly makes you see the same life with new eyes. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations, proof that when your signal is clear, life has no choice but to reflect it back. The real secret is not to force, but to refine, to live in synchronicity, to remember your essence, and to allow energy to flow the way it naturally wants to. That is where the power is, not in effort multiplied, but in resistance dissolved. So maybe today you can give yourself permission to release the fight, to trust that you are not behind, to remember that you are not lacking, to whisper to yourself, not as a trick, but as a truth, I allow things to be easy. Let those words settle into your body like warm light. Say them slowly, not with desperation, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they belong here. I allow things to be easy. Feel how your shoulders soften. Feel how your breath deepens. Feel how the noise quiets. And watch how life responds. Gently, naturally, but with an accuracy that will take your breath away. Because that is the true gift of manifestation. Not that you create from nothing, but that you finally remember. You were never separate from it at all.